just record like live from your Facebook page. But you can share this on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll share it. We'll share it. We'll delay. We'll go live on yours and delay.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay, and I get the notification. Alrighty. And I think that we're good. Okay, yes, sir. We are absolutely good, Brother Minister. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedule today to spend some time with a great guest of mine, someone who was my former teacher, who has been inspirational in many women, young men, young women's lives, just being a motivator and inspiration to many people. But personally, to me, to see him come from being my former teacher to become a mayor of a city, that is huge, Brother Minister. I want to introduce everyone to, or reconnect people who already know him, Minister Marcus Muhammad. How are you doing, sir?
Fine, thank you a lot.
Yes,
just
sir.
excited to be on the air with you, and just to commend you on, the way that you're expressing, Islam, as well as reaching out on a whole nother level.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, sir. Okay, Brother Minister, when did you accept the teaching, sir?
So I was introduced to Islam about 15. I had a cousin, actually, Brother Ryan Muhammad, formerly Mitchell, who was, on the E-team. And he started feeding me bits and pieces while I was in high school. And coming from a church background, Church of God in Christ on my mother's side, AME on my father's side. So I had a knowledge of the Bible, grew up hearing about God, loving God. But when I started to listen to my cousin, he started sharing different things. It just was connecting the dots, So, I tell my Christian family, it's not that, we left Jesus. However, Islam, as taught by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, gives us a whole nother understanding of that Christ Jesus that, we read about.
Okay, excellent. And why did you accept it?
Well, that's where the rubber meets the road. Once I got to DePaul, could have went to Cincinnati, could have went to Wisconsin, Colorado, Oklahoma, but Chicago, it was something about Chicago. Of course, DePaul, WGN, it was close to home. It was really destined for me because at that time, those other programs that I just mentioned were better from a basketball standpoint at that time. But the tradition and the history that DePaul had, that also drew me. But when I got to Chicago and started to experience life, running the streets, of course, and got into a situation where I began to self-destruct as a result of the lifestyle or death style that I was living. And, Islam comes after all else has failed.
Yes,
and I had begun to fail, on the verge of losing my scholarship. I was unhappy with the whole college Division I circuit. And I needed to grab hold to something, really to save my life. And, it was a epiphany, actually, where I knew when I first heard the teachings that once I began to get serious about God, so to speak, it would be through Islam. And I was on my way, I never forget, to psychology class downtown. And it was a brother selling the final call. it had it was the article with the UFO, so-called, right, Independence Day. And, my friends, they're like, man, D's, man, what you buying that for, man? Buddy, what's that? And I said, oh, man, I just supported the brother, man, and, took it to class with me. But when I got home and opened it up, the rest is history.
Okay, excellent. Yes, sir. And did you ever reconnect with the brother who sold you the Final Call?
Never seen him again.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay, now a lot of
people for those that's out there selling that paper, you saving lives. You know what I'm saying? I can attest to it because it was from that one paper that I brought that has gotten me to where I am today. So don't take it for granted. One paper can change a life.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Okay, now at DePaul, a lot of people want to know about your experience at DePaul. You played shooting guard or point guard?
I can't say, I won't dare to say point guard because I wasn't too fond to pass it, Okay. So I was a shooting guard, and, that was my role on the team. And I ended up leaving DePaul as the all-time three-point field goal champion. So I made a few while I was there, had a few assists too, so I can't say I didn't pass, but my forte was letting it go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And for those who didn't know, when I was in middle school, Brother Marcus was the first person to ever teach me how to shoot a basketball because I was so bad at basketball. So I thank you very much, Minister, for teaching me how to properly shoot a free throw.
Yes, sir.
Very instrumental in that. Now, after your time at DePaul, what led you into education or to become a teacher?
Well, I was actually on my way back to Benton Harbor. And by this time, just to rewind, so the first national official that it was, that they introduced me to was your father. The second was Minister Ishmael. So by that time, your father and I had already developed a relationship because he had given me started my first library. So he, and I still have the This Is the One copy. He gave me This Is the One, Torchlight for America, of course, Meaning of the FOI, Flag of Islam. And that started me out. Now I got some books all over the place. My wife, she, to where she like, you need to do something with all these books. But it was those foundational, stones that really, propelled me on the journey and thirst for learning. But Minister Ishmael, I was letting him know my plans and that I was going to come back to Benton Harbor and I was going to start a study group. And he said, well, we need teachers. And I'm like, teachers? Because I didn't go to college for education. So, but of course, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said we should be able to teach whatever grade we went up to.
Yes, sir.
So I had my degree, and he said, well, why don't you come and work at Muhammad University of Islam? And at that time, I was being courted by the Milwaukee Bucks. And pardon me, I was supposed to go work out, but the workout was during the first week of school. So I was in the position to where, am I going to go pursue, trying to work out with the Bucks, or am I going to commit to becoming a teacher and getting in a ministry class of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I made my choice, and that was to come to Muhammad University of Islam. I didn't have no place to stay at that time. I was still staying on campus. But anyhow, I went to FOI and raised my hand, and they introduced me to the class. I let the captain know that I needed a place to stay, and Brother Donnie, soldier Brother Donnie.
Yes, sir, I'm familiar.
He said we got a place on 70. I think it was 72nd and East End, and that's how it all started.
Okay, excellent. Yes, sir. Now, help me understand, please, because I'm actually in my junior year and I'm a history education major, so I will be going into education. However, I don't have as much as I like to shoot. I don't have a jump shot, or getting courted by NBA team. So, what made you choose teaching above, shooting in the league?
Well, my experience at DePaul, we actually lived like we were in the league.
Okay.
I was hanging out with the Knicks, during their heyday when they had Charles Smith, and I think Oak Tree was on there, and I was 18. We hanging out, what later became known as E2. We at the clique, we hanging out with Worldwide West at that time that he wasn't worldwide. So I was exposed to a lot in a very short amount of time. And I seen a lot. And I said, if this is what the NBA is about, drugs, women, fast life, but at the same time, I'm looking at the condition of my people, right? So I'm buying my chronic out of Cabrini, over in I won't say exactly where, but over in on 51st, over in that Princeton area, you know what I'm saying? So I'm all over there. My roommate, Beliefia Parks, I'm gonna send a shout out, Lieutenant. He was from Simeon, so we down in the Ickies, in the hill, so I'm just seeing Black life on a whole nother level, of course, coming from Benton Harbor as well. So I'm like, man, this something ain't right with this picture, Why is it that because I can shoot a ball, I'm treated, where we live in, quote unquote, upper class, staying in a loft on the north side of Chicago, but my people living in squalor, So I said somebody gotta, curb the condition and do something. And I saw the Nation of Islam as the avenue to make that kind of impact and influence. And I said, well, what better way to start than through education? So, I was done with that life, and I knew that, it's a greater purpose for me, in education. That was the bridge.
Wonderful, and thank you for making that sacrifice. Peace, family, from Naima, Walaikum Salam, Mimi. Thank you, my sisters, and the greetings, Brother Marcus, our minister. Now, were you single at this time, or no, during the time of you making that decision?
So, of course, I didn't get married to 25. Okay, so I was certainly single, and I was very serious about following the law, right? So, I went from, of course, a whole life of, basketball and all of that, what comes with that, in terms of, how athletes move around. But But once I, came in touch with the teachings and processing class, in which I was already processing my senior year, I was committed to being celibate and committed to this restrictive law of Islam. And I thought and think, that was the best decision that I could have made, because it allowed for me to have that space and place to grow spiritually. You know what I'm saying? So, and to be able to see clearly, to find, my wife, because it's when you, like the minister described fornication, it's intoxication. It's like drinking and driving. You dig? So, I was blessed to be strong enough to live that life, single life for real. And Allah blessed me to find my wife working at the Final Call, and now we have 6 beautiful children as a result, of marriage in Islam. So anybody that's single, I would just encourage you to practice celibacy, and be about that life, because that way Allah will bless you, male and female, to find that person that Allah has for you. And it also will lay a strong foundation, not only to get married, but to stay married.
Yes, sir. And thank you for that. And thank you all for watching today. 1 second, Marcus. I want to thank all of our sponsors this week. We had Street Premiere with Politically Oppressed. We have ABC I Love Me. We have Akira's Coffee Shop. We have Cheesecake Factory in Chicago. I want to thank you all for your sponsorships, as well as Sister Amina Haq Muhammad for her sponsoring this podcast. Brother Minister, how did they receive you not going to the league?
Boy, man, it's still some lingering pain. Because I was raised where that was what you was born to do. My father played ball, was celebrated. So I was following right up in his footsteps, and it was just great high school career. I went to DePaul to go to the league. So that was my thinking completely. And I had the potential to go. But, we planned and a lot of plans.
Yes, sir.
But for my family, it was tough, man, because I went cold turkey. You know what I'm saying? Where my senior year, which I was the man, and I started, actually your father was trying to get me to slow down because I had so much zeal that I'm like, I'm going to start eating to live. I'm wearing my suit and bow tie to class. I'm wearing my suit and bow tie on plane trips. I'm going in the cafe. I mean, I was going 0 to 100. You understand? I mean, I was ready to change the world. While your father, the supreme captain at that time, was letting me know it's a process. You don't have to, throw away all that you have worked for, just because you have found, your a destiny on another level. However, I was so gung-ho to make that change. It was all or nothing. you know,
Mm.
and I don't regret, you know, if I look back, I probably would have done some things differently. Um, but I had an opportunity to mentor a young man who, uh, from my high school, ended up going to DePaul, Wilson Chandler, who plays
Mm.
for the Los Angeles Clippers now, played for the Knicks. This is his 12th year in the league.
Mm.
Very progressive, to where I could show him, you know, you can be in this process, you can be in this, you know, evolutionary, on this track, uh, and that change is gradual. You know, you don't have to, you know, put on a suit and bow tie today, you know, even though it's good if you do. However, that won't, you know, prevent or keep you from moving toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So uh, he learned where I may have uh, leaped before I looked.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay,
If that
wonderful.
makes
Thank you.
sense.
That makes a whole bunch of sense. Yes, sir. Brother, this is a brother named Jamal. He says ASA, Brother University of College Education, as you know, can be free. Um,
What city is he from?
I think Chicago. He says merit-based scholarships. I run a program that can help students at MUI. Let me know. By the way, Brother Marcus and I went through processing class together.
Okay.
Uh, he would know me as remember me ASA. His name is Jamal. I don't Jamal Muhammad.
Okay.
Yes, sir. 312 number. So that's Chicago. My
Okay.
sister Miriam says, we thank Allah for you and your wife and your children's sacrifice and your service to our nation and our people in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Thank you, Miriam.
Shout out
Okay,
to Big
brother.
Harvard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When was your first time meeting the Most Honorable Minister Farrakhan?
My first time seeing him in 1996. My first time hearing him was on a tape. Uh, but my first time laying eyes on him was in St. Louis at the National Black Political Convention, actually. And it's kind of ironic that 20 years later, um, I became the mayor,
Mm-hmm.
of Benton Harbor. Um, but my first brush with him physically was a lecture concerning how we need to create a third force to influence the politics.
Mm. Yes, sir. And how did you end up going into wanting to be a mayor?
Well, you know, and this is why, you know, we have to be very careful, Brother Joshua, in our judgment, right? So when I was 8 years old and I was watching Reverend Jackson run for president,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the impact that had on me in respect to a black man becoming involved with politics. Uh, I mean, that influenced my thinking and my mind on a whole nother level, to where uh, it made me to see and say uh, that I would like to, uh, you know, at some point be the president, in fact, of the United States, just by
Mm.
watching him in his run. Of course, through life, you know, that never, you know, but the thought and the seed was there. And I was actually at a meeting in Chicago in 2009, and actually I was accompanying somebody, just escorting them to be in a meeting with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And at the end of the meeting, he asked me, he said, Brother Marcus, have you ever thought about being the mayor? And of course, that was totally off guard because, that was nowhere on the agenda. I didn't even know, other than him giving me the greetings, that I would even have an opportunity to really say anything, because again, I wasn't there to meet with him. I just came with someone. And as a result of that, that just, put that seed in my head. And I said, well, I'm not going to just jump up and run for mayor. Let me run for city council. And that's when I ran for city commission in 2009, was elected, got reelected in 2013. And then 2015, we was elected as mayor of the city.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. Chisma X Harper asked, well, he just answered your question about becoming the mayor. On your run to becoming mayor, were there ever any death threats or anytime you felt maybe a fear for your life while you were in Benton Harbor?
Well, prior to becoming the mayor, I had took a opposing position to some of the activity and policies that the emergency management or manager was doing in Benton Harbor. And I felt that Whirlpool Corporation, Harbor Shores Development, I felt like they were supporting the state in the takeover of Benton Harbor. And I came out and opposed a major, the Senior PGA Tour. And probably a couple weeks later, I came outside of my home and it was a dead possum, similar to The Godfather, where the dead horse head was in the bed. But a dead possum was right in my driveway, busted head. No way it could have just got there. You see what I'm saying? So I took it as a message, not a veiled threat, but a message to say, stand down, And of course, I let the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan know about it. And that was on the heels of that, when he came back to Benton Harbor in 2012, the first time he came for Reverend Pickney. And I think the second time he came to say and send a message, this is our man. Praise be to Allah. And yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yes, sir. Brother Benny sends a greeting. Alaikum salam, Brother Benny. Yes, sir. So after that, that situation and the minister come in, what advice did he give you to help you maneuver to become mayor?
Well, he had told me during the primary for city council, and we won the primary in a landslide, but he said, brother, they want to radicalize you. He said, so monitor your language. He said, otherwise, you won't get in November. So, of course, he said that in 2009, but when we ran for mayor in 2015, 2015. Well, actually, we ran in 2014 in a recall election, but the election was called off. Then it was put back on. Then it was called off again in the appellate court, and then the Supreme Court struck it down and said there'll be no election. And that's when Reverend Pinckney was put in prison, which came out later from the Supreme Court that he was wrongfully imprisoned. This was after he had been in for over 2.5 years. But they never came back to address the actual election, because by that time we had won in a landslide. And to your point, I looked at the advice that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had given me in 2009 and saw that it really applied more to that seat than it did for the lesser seat. The other advice he gave me, he said, brother, first he said, I'm your corner man. And this was out of a context that I don't want to go into at this time. But he said, I'm your corner man. And he said, if you get a black eye, I got something for that. He said, if you get a bloody nose, I got something for that. He said, but you, brother, you be as right as you know how. And you be as wise as you know how. So that advice right there, that's worth more, Brother Joshua, than any political advice. And I've been blessed to talk with President Obama, Reverend Jackson, senators, Congressman Carson, but I can't think of one piece of information that I have been given that would trump that advice that he gave me. Guidance, really, not advice, but guidance.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Wonderful. Okay, you have sons and daughters, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, sir. What is the difference in your parenting method versus raising sons versus daughters?
Well, the beauty, is I'm married by Allah's grace. So having two parents gives you two approaches, where the Holy Quran says the male is not like the female, and vice versa. So in having that duality, that dynamic, that masculine, that feminine, the disciplinarian, it's all needed. You know what I'm saying? And that teamwork is needed, because sometimes I may be ready to bring the hammer down, and the wife may, give me some advice to say, it don't have to be a sledgehammer. It can be, in this case, he needs a pat on the back. You see what I'm saying? Encouragement. Or as opposed to punishment, but other times, hey, I gotta handle my business. You see what I'm saying? So, and sometimes that's needed, because the female is much more merciful in a sense than the male, which is why, where you have that dynamic with, many of our single women raising boys, where that balance of, that strong father disciplinarian, is different from the mother, So I would just recommend, that's why the families, Brother Joshua, we have to strengthen the family, because as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, where there's no discipline, there's no love. So the family, that's the greatest form of parenting, mother and father.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. What advice would you give to future fathers?
Well, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he said that, being a good son first, is a prerequisite to being a good father.
Mm. Mm.
So, because we just don't jump up and I'm a good father, because that fatherhood is that's also a process. So I've been married by Allah's grace. This will be my 19th year. And I can honestly say on my 7th child, I've grown in my fatherhood, and matured than my second child, so, and really striving to be a Muslim, because that refines and that dignifies and that helps us to be fathers. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan following his example. Some guidance he said to all of us, but he told me, he said, brother, go as you see me go and do as you see me do. And say it how I said it, and you'll be successful. And that starts at home.
Yes, sir. Okay, excellent. And thank you all for your comments and your views. And thank you very much, Minister, for your great words. What made you choose your wife?
She is watching now. I think I honestly believe, of course, Allah gives us free will. But I started out as a co-worker where my wife was working at the Final Call. And I became an editorial assistant. And she was the editorial supervisor. So we started out working together. And that was the grounds for the beginning of the relationship. So I didn't meet my wife at the club. I didn't meet her a happy hour. You know what I'm saying? We met in the line of duty. So, and then we started, she was helping Mother Tynetta, may Allah be pleased with her. And we started, Mom was always moving around, going to this conference, going to this exhibit, and I was just became the brother who was, escorting security. And I courted a couple sisters, well, one prior to my wife, and of course that didn't work out. And Allah by that time had showed me that this is your wife. And we started to court, and the rest is history. So I knew I was ready to be married, I thought, and I wanted to be married. So that's another piece right there. There has to be a real desire. Everything starts with desire on the man, particularly to want to be married. And, I was asking Allah to send me my wife.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because the Bible says you have not because you ask not.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I was asking Allah to send me my wife as I was looking for one.
Mm.
And she was right in front of my face. And we've been married since 2000. Actually, we got married at the Million Family March.
Okay, wonderful, sir. Wonderful, sir. I saw your wedding pictures on Facebook. They look beautiful. Yes, sir. Okay, I have a question. When you have made an error or something and you have to apologize to your wife, how do you go about that?
Well, I mean, first of all, you got to recognize that you was wrong. And sometimes in the human nature, you want to be right. Our brains was created to think right.
Yes, sir.
However, through the human experience, through defects, we can offend one another. And I would like to think that, when I'm shown that I'm wrong, or when I just know I'm wrong, it's always better to be quick to apologize. But it's an area that, we all have to do better with, where we, not just apologize, but we follow up with good work, to show that, not only am I in word apologetic, but follow up it with deeds. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he said that time and good work heals wounds. So, and it goes both ways, women, the wife can be wrong too,
Absolutely.
Just gonna keep some balance, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
However, most times it's us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. I see your question, Brother James, and we're coming to it. What advice would you give to future husbands?
Well, the word husband is from the Latin hus, which is in English is house. So, in a band is something that keeps something together, So a band aid brings, keeps the skin, something that has been injured, it so it can heal. So a house band or a hus band, keeps the home, keeps the house, keeps the family together. And the only way that we can keep our homes and to keep our family together is we got to be together. We have to, as men, not just be the head of the house because, but we have to be, striving to be right men by following the example of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and just strive and prayer, charity, of course fasting. I mean, these are all areas that will help us to be better Muslims, better men, and will keep us from being wicked husbands. men.
Mm.
Because it's a lot of that too, where we can become corrupted, and will cause us to be default and fail in our duty.
Yes, sir. And thank you all for watching, and thank you for your great responses, sir. Brother James says, what keeps you going through the hard times?
The teachings.
Mm.
I was reading in Study Guide 18, Rising Above Emotion into the Thinking of God, where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was talking about how, we will go through serious trials. And, sometimes the trial can be so great where we feel abandoned and we feel forsaken. And he said, usually when you run into that kind of thought, then depression can kick in.
Mm.
I went through I'm talking about a real dark period in my life where I wasn't working. Of course, it was forces and things going on where I was, my family and I were under attack. And it was a move to push me out of Benton Harbor because they didn't want me to be the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So certain avenues was being cut off. So I thought, but Allah was just shutting doors where I could walk through another door and have a greater opportunity to be a better father, a better husband, a better mayor. You know what I'm saying? But at the time, I'm looking at the opposition and looking at what they're doing to me as opposed to seeing what Allah was doing for me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But of course, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was critically important because like he told me, he said, brother, you are not forsaken. And, I told him I felt like Johnny Fontaine, who had come to the Godfather and he smacked him upside the head.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He told him, you gonna get the part.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? And he got the part. But in this case, it wasn't a part in that sense, but you're gonna get to the next level. But you just gotta follow the guidance and cover down on the man on the right, who's always right.
Yes, sir.
And the
yes,
man
sir.
on the right is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And once we take our eyes off of him, like Peter, we'll start sinking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
And thank you for your comment, Brother James, and thank you for your great response, Brother Minister. What do you do for fun?
It's my time, right? So it's my wife's birthday today, right? Mm-hmm. So we went to the movies. We saw the movie Us. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that?
No, sir, not yet.
You gotta check it out.
Okay, yes, sir, I will.
Great piece. We went and we had fun. We, had some quiet time and went and watched my son play some basketball. I love reading. You know what I'm saying? I'm reading probably about 10 different books right now. So I find enjoyment in learning. And so that's I don't have a lot of fun time, so to speak, quote unquote, just because of the demand. But I do strive to find time to refuel and rejuvenate myself.
Okay, excellent. We have two more questions for you, Minister. What advice would you give to people who want to go into politics?
Well, what's your motive? Would be the first thing that I would, encourage them to examine, because politics, it's a dirty game. And it's already filled with corrupted characters. And the Bible says bad company corrupts good character.
Yes, sir.
So you can want to do good and help your people, but if there's ill motive, then that's where corrupted characters ride in, and you look up, like the minister told me. He said, brother, you can be turned and don't even know it. He said the earth is turning right now. Can you feel it? I said, no, sir. And it's spinning at 1,037, 1/3 mile per hour, making 4 dips, but you can't feel it. He said, so Satan can be turning you and you don't even know it. And by the time you find up and look up, you gone. So motive, why are you doing it? Why do you want to be in politics? Will be my first, thing that I think should be examined. And then, secondly, like the minister said, you better have a box of detergent if you do get in politics, because you got to constantly wash, just because of the debris in the dirt that you gon' come in contact with. And if you're not constantly washing, constantly cleaning, it's not if but when the enemy take you out.
Okay, yes, sir. Well, we're definitely rooting for you, sir, and rooting for your family to be strong and to make it through. What do you want your legacy to be?
The Holy Quran says, die not unless you die the death of a Muslim.
Yes, sir.
So I would just like to be, at the end of the day, that people will say, one, he was a good brother. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I can remember, he said, brother, if the FOI class is too little for you, then the ministry class is too big for you. So that's where we learn in FOI to be a good brother, right? We must first be brothers. So I would want for somebody to say, man, he was a good brother. And a Muslim that was striving. And if, that could, if I could be remembered like that, then everything else that we set out to do will just be magnified and, glorified with the help of Allah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, Brother Minister. I know it's your wife's birthday, so I want to thank her for allowing you to share some time with us as well. It was an honor to interview you, sir. You are definitely one of my greatest inspirations, Brother Marcus. And many people you inspire us, because I've never seen somebody who it was a Muslim who became a mayor. I mean, that's just huge. So it's very encouraging to let me know that, like, man, we can accomplish things. You know, that's really
cool. Well, I hope, Brother Joshua, that if there are any other young Muslims aspiring to get in politics, we need more. Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in Message to the Black Man, said, put the Muslim program to Congress. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, well, how can we put it to Congress if we don't have somebody in Congress? So it may not be for me. I may just be, the tip of the iceberg. Just to get it started and to let people know. Tamika Mallory, she asked me in Detroit when she found out I was the mayor. She said, "You the mayor?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." "You in the nation?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." The Nation of Islam. And once our people can begin to see us beyond the bean pie, the bow tie,
absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying? The fruit bag. That we have much more to offer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Then I think that we will, be the next set of judges, politicians, business owners, et cetera, et cetera. So may Allah bless you. Thank you. I wish we had some of that ATL weather up here, snow and action.
Yes, sir.
But praise be to Allah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for watching. This will be on YouTube. I'll send you the link, Brother Marcus. Everyone who wants to see the thing in entirety, you can just YouTube Joshua Muhammad Off the Record. Thank you all for watching, and may Allah bless you, Brother Minister.
Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much.